side do you want to go in?
What I said, trees on one side, snow on the other.
Uh-huh.
Only there was more snow, and that was the middle of August. Yeah.
All wooden piers.
What's this?
It depends sometimes.
Up on the hill there.
Pretty good bet. I just look up. Alright, we'll just look for a train here. You guys see a train? He just left. Okay, good. Is he going there? Oh, a little bit. It'll take just a second to get going. We don't need a lot of air conditioning here in Skagway. But it'll get going in just a second there. It'll be nice and cool. It might even be cold by the time we get out to Lyre still. Alright, well, look right down that street there, and that's pretty much Skagway. That's it, yeah. I hope you enjoyed the city tour. Yeah. I'm going to just take you up here and drop you off back to the ship now. Is that worth, what is it, a quarter you guys had to pay? 35 cents, so they went up. Some of the natives, the Clinkets from Haines, came up here and they built this big tent and they had dancing in there. You could go watch the native dancing and singing and all that. It was pretty cool, but only lasted for about 2 days. They spent almost a month building that thing, the stage and everything. Went for 2 days and they shut it down. I don't know why. It's kind of strange. Kind of wacky, kind of wild, kind of Kool-Aid style. Okay, off to our left here, we're going to pass the grocery store. This is the, well, no, don't laugh. This is the only grocery store within 110 miles. People come a long ways to get to this baby right here. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to how much a gallon of milk costs? $4.79 for 1 gallon of milk. That's right. I don't get my dairy products here very often. Pretty expensive. A lot of things are expensive up here. We're at the kind of northernmost point of Lynn Canal. It's about as far north as you can go on the inside passage. So not a lot to do. Not a lot of reason for people to bring food up here. Look over that horse right there. Let me tell you a little story about that horse. Now, you guys familiar with Dai? You guys know what Dai is? You guys know what the Chilkoot Trail is? Yeah. Okay, the Chilkoot Trail was, there's one of 2 trails that were going through this area. There's a White Pass Trail, and we're at the head of that right now. Dai is the head of the Chilkoot Trail, alright? Now, they do horseback tours out in Dai, and that horse was out in Dai, he's just kind of sitting around in pasture, and he got attacked by a bear. He got all mangled up, and that's why he's just sitting in that yard. He's been there about 3 weeks now, kind of recovering. Looking a lot better. When he first got here, you could see every single one of his ribs, and his rear leg was all mangled up. He was kind of matted with blood. It was nasty. That's the Skagway School right there. Yeah, this is the Gold Rush Historic RV Park. This is where the prospectors parked their RVs when they were coming through. Now that school right there, does anybody know how much Alaska was purchased for? $7.2 million, that's right. That school right there, it was finished 3 years ago for the small price of $8.2 million. Yeah, how's that for a lot of money? About 160 students. All grades, K through 12, that's right. That's right. No, actually, any teachers on board? Any ex-teachers on board? Okay, what was your teacher-to-student ratio?
It
35 students?
About that. It was
about
secondary.
35 to each teacher?
Yeah.
Well, the teacher-to-student ratio here, instead of 1 to 35, is 1 to 9, which is pretty good. That's about. The year before it was 5. The year before that it was only 3. There have been some years where it was just 0. There were no people graduating. That's right, make for a small prom. What I understand about prom, you pretty much got to have your prom day cinched in by about 2nd grade or you're going solo. Yeah. The lowest GPA in last year's class, grade point average, was a 3.5.
Oh.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So with all that individual attention, and as you can imagine, in the wintertime, there's not a lot else to do. It's pretty slow here. We do have that video store, though. Girl, I've never seen her off that horse. She always has it, all over town. Look at that dry riverbed right there. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I will talk about it. So I want you to remember that dry riverbed right there. I don't know if you noticed that speed sign there, it says 35, speed checked by radar. It really is. We have 4 cops in town. They don't have a lot to do. So they check your speed everywhere you go. Nice thing is they all go home about 4 o'clock. Yeah, you can be driving 90 miles an hour down here from 5 o'clock until midnight. Nobody cares. That's right, a little rollerblader going on here on the left-hand side. She's got really nice legs. Wow. We can drive on up there. I can show you if you like. Okay, look off to the left-hand side here. You see this tall, kind of mangy-looking plant with the purple flowers? There's some up in front of us here. The right-hand side. A little bit on the left as well. That's fireweed. You guys heard of fireweed?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the sourdough calendar. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, you did know that?
Yeah.
Oh, one guy did. Okay.
7 weeks until.
Yeah, you can tell when we're going to get fall here, because or when you're going to get the first snow, the first frost. Well, the rhyme goes when the fireweed's gone to cotton, summer's soon forgotten. Okay, and you can see it's already gone to cotton. That cotton is long gone. So I think we're going to have an early winter this year. Early winter. Also, you can tell as the leaves grow up, and it looks like Big Al's taking care of it for us. Right on. You might want to thank him for that when we open the door as well. Okay, you guys ready with your yeehaw?
Yeah.
All right.
It's my baby! See?
During showtime. Oh yeah, George is always running around, but Leonard's always sleeping.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mush Trisha. Well, she doesn't mush very much anymore. She mostly mush.
Oh, nobody's thinking.
What's the matter?
And the pig.
These retired. These dogs live to be like 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
Everybody else want to jump in? Don't be bashful. These are 5-month-old Mackenzie
look at that. Historic Skagway right there. See the ships coming in. Does anybody know what Skagway means? Home of the north wind, that's right. You look out there, you look at the trees and the smoke coming off the ships. There is no wind today. This is an unreal day. This never happened. Maybe 2-3 days this nice all summer. It's pretty cloudy and rainy. Now over here you can see the school from the back side. Off that way, that brown building. You see the runway here? That's Skagway International Airport. International, we get about 2 flights a year from Canada, so they call it international airport. We've got 2 airlines. What's that? Well, the school's only open in the wintertime, the wintertime, and the planes don't fly quite so often in the winter. It's open right now, actually opened a couple of days ago, but it's not too bad if they land this part of the runway and turn around over there. The planes only need a couple hundred yards to take off. They don't really need that much space. Well, you can see them down there. They're 5. I think the biggest plane they have down there right now is a 9-seater.
There goes one off. It just landed. Oh, did it just land?
Tiny. See the railway runs right across there. And I want you guys to take a look at that clock up on the wall. It's Return to Curio Shop, and it's set at 8:19, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And we'll also drive by Kermsey, right downtown. We've got 2 ships in. I think we have the 2 ships, the Odyssey, Royal Odyssey, and is that what it is? The Regency? Regency's got a. Have you noticed all the graffiti over on the wall over there? It kind of looks like graffiti. Well, when Skagway first became a town, people first started coming into the port, there wasn't a ship registry. So the ship captains and whatnot would go out and they'd paint the name of their ship, the insignia, and the captain's name up there. Well, it kind of became a tradition, and people started doing it over and over, and you see there's all kinds of writing on the wall over there. Well, after it kind of became a tradition, it kind of became a contest. So you could have the biggest and the highest. Well, there was somebody from Regency decided they were going to have the biggest at the highest point on the hill. So if you look over there, down all the graffiti, you go up about 300 feet, and you see on the wall there that white with red on it. Climbed up there at the upper hill, painted that on there, looked around, thought it was beautiful, did a great job, found out he couldn't get down, he was stuck. And he stood back to higher than he was. And he was stuck, couldn't get down, so the ship captain had to charter a helicopter to go up there and get him off. I guess the ship captain was none too pleased at spending his money on chartering a helicopter to get this guy down. I don't know. I don't know if they did or not. Now you see the dock being built over there along the wall? That's the railroad dock that used to be called Moore Dock. Captain William goes extremely wide. And this one didn't burn down even though it was made out of wood. What happened to this one is there's a submarine landslide, which is just a landslide that occurs completely submarine or under the water. Okay? Destroyed that dock completely. This just happened last November. Okay? They tried to rebuild it. They put the pilings in this January. They wanted to have it done by May so we get all kinds of ships in here and the town will make all kinds of money. About 2 weeks after they put those pilings down, they floated right back up out of the water. And you can see they're still working on it. They can get 1 ship in there, but
That's what she said.
not quite that. When they've got all the docks finished and everything's running perfectly, we should be able to get 6 ships in this town. Okay, now there's kind of a lot of people walking around with just 2 ships in town. You can imagine 6 ships with 1,000, 1,200 people in them coming through here. That's a lot of people in this town. There's only about 2,000 summer residents. There'll be about 750 winter residents. That's a lot of people. That's really tripling the population of Skagway in the summer. In the wintertime, it would be, what do you say, 6 sextuplets? He ripped off a lot of people, okay? Now, if you're a gold miner, a prospector, or somebody in the gold rush, you're looking for gold, You come through here, you got just so much money in your pocket. Soapy takes most of it. How much of it are you going to spend at the other establishments in town? Not much, because you don't have much to spend. Well, that's exactly what happened. And the other businessmen in town, the so-called legitimate businessmen, the saloon owners and brothel owners, they got a little bit upset. They got a little bit upset that Soapy was taking all the money off their customers. So they wanted to get rid of him, right? That makes enough sense. A little hardcore capitalism going on. So what they did is they formed the Committee of 101. Now, with a name like that, you think there are about 101 people in the committee. Not true. There were about 30, 35 people in the committee. They thought the Committee of 101, though, would sound just a little bit more important. So they called themselves the Committee of 101. The only purpose of the Committee of 101 was to get rid of Soapy Smith. They wanted to run him out of town. The only problem is, every time they got together to have a meeting to figure out how to do this, Soapy's gang would come, they'd show up and break up the meetings, okay? So one night they had a secret meeting. It was out on Juneau Wharf. This is the, what's the ore dock now, that brown dock. It ran all the way to First Street. The title flats used to be there. There's a warehouse on that dock. They had a secret meeting out there. They kind of snuck out there. Well, at the very last minute, Soapy heard about it. That particular night, he'd been celebrating a little bit. You know what I mean? A little bit of hooch. Been drinking some. Well, he goes down there to the dock to break up that meeting. He's got his Winchester rifle with him. And he meets a man at the door by the name of Frank Reed. Frank Reed is guarding the door to the Committee of 101. Now, Frank Reed and Soapy Smith have already had a little bit of a run-in. Both of them were in love with the same woman. That woman's name is Ella Wilson, and we'll see her grave out here when we go to the cemetery. So they got into it. They got in a bit of a fight. Yelling and cussing and swearing. Now, Frank Reed was wanted for murder. He killed a man down in Oregon, and he was up here kind of hiding from the law. Well, Soapy Smith, they got into words. The last word Soapy Smith said, "Don't shoot, Frank." Well, I'll tell you what, Frank didn't listen. He pulled that gun and pointed it right at Soapy Smith's chest. He pulled that trigger, and you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. Complete blank. Well, this kind of horrified Frank Reed because Soapy Smith had a gun in his hand. Well, this kind of horrified Soapy Smith because he didn't want to get shot. He was pretty much scared witless. But he was smart enough to pull his gun up, point it right at Frank Reed's chest, and squeeze that trigger. Well, before he could do that, Frank Reed pushed that gun down because he didn't want to get shot in the chest. Well, he didn't push it down quite fast enough. He didn't push it down quite far enough. That gun got down to about groin level when it went off and shot Frank Reed right in the groin. Well, he fell to the ground just like a ton of bricks, but he still had his gun in his hand. He cocked it back again, and he fired it right at Soapy Smith. Well, what happens? It hit him in the knee, and Soapy fell to the ground. Well, before Soapy could get his gun ready to go again, Frank Reed cocked his gun and it fired again. It hit Soapy Smith right in the heart. He died right there on the spot. Well, he lay there for 3 days before anybody would pick up his body and bury him. The Committee of 101 saw to that. He was buried as a town criminal, the town crook, the town thief, if you will. And they buried him just about 6 feet outside of the cemetery boundaries when they finally did bury him. And I might mention that about 4 days before this, he was the Grand Marshal in the 4th of July parade. Kind of a fickle town, Skagway. Her horses to haul goods over the trail before they finished the train. Well, she made enough money doing this to buy the old Moore house, the Moore mansion, and she built a hotel there. And she ran it for about 50 years, rather successfully. Famous for the hospitality, infamous for the way she treated her employees. She drank? Well, more than that sometimes. Sometimes 2 or 3 times, but yeah, 2 or 3 times a day the train will run. And a lot of times there's little cars that run through here.
Before somebody asks, I will tell you, made out of granite,
she's painted gold. But it looks good, huh? I like it. It was put here by this gentleman right here. Now, I don't want to say bad things about a dead gentleman, but he couldn't spell too well. You notice he spelled Skagway Street Car Company as opposed to Streetcar Company. He put this here. He was the first person to start doing tours in town. He started the, he got a hold of the second gold rush in Skagway. He kind of founded it. He's kind of known for that. He ran a streetcar operation in town. He did tours out here. Tours much like the one we have. Remember, did you see that trolley up at the overlook area there? He had a car real similar to that. It was an old flatbed truck that he converted. Now on the front, he had a bear, a stuffed bear, that would turn as he turned. If he turned to the left, the bear turned to the left, he'd go, roar! And same thing, turn to the right, roar! Up to the right. It's pretty cool. I've just seen pictures of it. Cost a quarter, just like he did today for you folks. So he was really a man ahead of his time. You can see he chained his gold nugget to the tree so nobody'd steal it. Now behind me, see Reed Falls? That's a great-great-grandson. He came up here to look at his great-great-grandfather's grave, and he thought, well, darn, I don't think it's right that my great-great-grandfather be buried as a villain. He did some good things, and he did. I can tell you about them a little bit later if you like. So he started what they call Soapy's Wake, which is just a celebration of Soapy Smith's life, and it really caught hold here in Skagway. There are 3 big days here in Skagway. Now, the first day is the summer solstice. Summer solstice, of course, is the longest day of the year. People stay out all night. They play softball at 2 o'clock in the morning, volleyball, and you stay outside all night out in the fields, playing around, doing whatnot. On 4th of July, you know what that is. We've got a big parade and all kinds of contests in town. Arm wrestling contest. I saw this kid, he was about 12. He had to arm wrestle one of the dock workers. I thought that guy was going to break his arm. It was so funny. Anyway, things like that. We're going to have fireworks, though. It's still a little bit light for fireworks. We save them towards the end of the year a little bit. Then we've got Soapy Smith's Wake. What that is a big celebration, a big party in honor of Soapy Smith. Okay, now the very first one started out, Soapy Smith's great-great-grandson came out here with a case of champagne. And he got some people out here and he said, we're going to drink a toast. Boom. Here's to Soapy Smith. Hurrah, hurrah. And they drink all these bottles and bottles and bottles. Well, 2 things happen. You drink a case of champagne. Now, the first one's obvious. You get a little bit drunk, right? Sure. None of y'all have ever had champagne before, so you wouldn't know about that. But let me just take your word. Let me just take my word for it. You do get a little bit tipsy. The other thing that happens, you drink a case of champagne or anything, you kind of got to go to the restroom. Well, if you look around here, there's not a lot of restrooms near, and there's that one over there, and that's only been there for about a month. So what'd they do? Well, they looked around, and they thought, well, we've been drinking toast to Soapy Smith. The man who killed Soapy Smith is right over there. So they walk on over there. The guy's out here the day after Soapy's Wake, which is on the 8th of July. That's the day he was killed. And boy, that grave over there had just a bit of an odor to it. Okay, I don't. Yeah, no, a lot of people here are pretty young. Because of a lot of things. Another thing is sanitation. There was no sanitation in this area. People just pretty much threw their waste where they would. Well, and I think the latest one is in 43. I think that's the most recent grave. Yeah, but then we passed them actually. They were on the way up to the overlook there.
warmth of the water, just stop it right there? Well, the answer is that terminal moraine, or that moraine, that unsifted rock and dirt that's in the front of that glacier, acts as an insulator and helps keep the face of the glacier cold so that it can push the water back and advance right down the valley and create a new fjord. Notice on that Reed Glacier, the texture at the top of the glacier. See how it's all broken and prickly? Well, those pinnacles of ice are called seracs, the French word S-E-R-A-C. And seracs are caused as the glacier makes its way down the hill and over rounded bedrock, the top of it cracks to give it more flexibility to bend and to move and turn around corners. And we're going to see a number of glaciers that have deep seracs in them, or crevasses, which is where when the glacier breaks open and a huge crevice comes into the glacier, where those are also formed. Again, that's from the terrain that the glacier is moving over. Now, glaciers are more than just dirt and ice. They're also water. On either side of the glacier is a river, small rivers that run, little braided streams that help to carry that unsifted rock and debris, and particularly that rock flour that is now changing the color of the water more and more. If you have your map, you will see we've just passed Reed Inlet and the Reed Glacier, and we're heading into Johns Hopkins Inlet, and the next tidewater glacier of the day that we will see will be the Lamb Flume. Now, as you can see from the ice off the port side, there's been an active calving happening here most recently because there's quite a bit of ice already. The first thing that you will see from that Lamb Flume Glacier are its seracs, those frozen pinnacles. So keep your eyes to the left-hand side and see when you can first spot the Lamb Flume Glacier. Because the rainforest is where the black bears like to be, so they can climb trees for protection from wolves. But an area with fewer trees is where the Alaska brown bear, otherwise known as the grizzly bear, lives. It doesn't like all those trees. It can't climb trees. It likes to be able to have a long distance around it to see what's coming toward it or to smell what's coming toward it. So as you look for those seracs or ice and pinnacles of the Lamb Flume Glacier that will appear very shortly on the left-hand side, also look along the shoreline and see if you see one of those big hairy animals with claws.
Coming in Johns Hopkins with you're supposed to look into here. This is What, recent cabin or something?
The Lamp Blue is a tidewater glacier, which means the face of the glacier will hit the water, will be right down to the water.
Oh, those are all chunks of ice. So the boats up there, one pretty good chunk. Ain't quite a bit.
Well, some of you are seeing it. Just a little bit of the glacier that you can see just yet. But there's more and more and more and more, and the closer we get, the more of those pinnacles, the more of those seracs you can see. The Lamp Blue Glacier will show you exactly which way it comes down the hillside.
This is kind of,
Just keep looking, you'll see.
see that line? In 1892, that was turned over. In 1880, here's where the glacier is. So now we're sailing up here where in 1892 was the glacier. Then here, 1907. They proceeded to here and it's wrong now. Clear back here. Oh, that's you got big ones. Stop and get a piece of carve ice with it. You can't.
To granite, to shale, and schist, the glaciers find their way through the softest rock. They carve their way through that which is easiest, turning corners, oftentimes creating lots more seracs on the top of much rougher surface in order to find the easiest path down to the tidewater. Now, as we get close to the Lamp Blue, this is one of the bluest glaciers that you'll see. And again, the glaciers are blue because the ice is well compacted under the pressure and weight of all of that snow. And just like the ocean water is blue, it has the properties of reflecting back the blue color of the spectrum, so too does frozen water. That water which does not have a lot of air in between the ice crystals, the solid packed ice, is a very blue in color because it too reflects back the blue color of the spectrum. And the Lamp Blue is one of the bluest glaciers we have here in Glacier Bay.